thank you very much for being with us today. I mean, you got introduced, but don't hesitate when you will get the floor to give us a bit more information about what you do in your company and what are the key challenges that, for instance, your bank or your reinsurance company are facing around AI with pleasure. The topic of today is, I will not say the most important because that would be offensive for the next one, but basically there is no AI if there is not a data management approach. There is no accuracy, there is no cost optimization, and there is no way to have use cases that liberate value if your foundation are not strong enough. And so the first question I will ask to you, Christophe, with your Chief Data Officer hat, is what is the strategy, what are the key drivers of your data management strategy?
So if you take a step back, the first and most important for us is to make sure that we enable AI in a very compliant way. And if you then take a further step back, you very, very quickly get to data and data quality. And to give a very, very concrete example from, I would say, a previous employer, I had some amazing people scraping sustainability reports, and then they came to the amazing idea to add it to some AI and to a chatbot, and then they had the amazing idea to give it to client advisors, and there you go. Non-controlled data immediately straight in the hands of client advisors. And then you start realizing that having your master and authoritative sources right and your data quality right all of a sudden reduces your liability on a few dimensions. So I say getting your data quality right, getting your data management right is absolutely critical. Now if you look at our industry, and I keep saying that, BCBS 239 was not a Christmas gift, it was forever. And I do think that a lot of banks, when they did their BCBS compliance and other compliance, were very, very happy when the program was over. And now 5, 6 years later, you start seeing that some of the practices have degraded, with a lot of people having to reinvest to get back at a very, very high level, if not a higher level, to get their AI right. And I would say, God beware those banks that will not get their data management right, because AI is going to be very, very hard.
Thank you very much. And turning now to Antoine, you have a different context. I mean, you will tell us how different it is and how extensive you can see the difference, but you have a reinsurance perspective. Can you give us some information of exactly the scope of work of SCOR and the differences that you see from what Christophe said?
Yes, for sure. So, yeah, first of all, so for those who don't know reinsurance, so if you look at the world, we basically insure the insurance company. So mostly transfer capital in terms of risk. Which means that first, in terms of activity, we are more on the business-to-business type activity, which simplifies somehow all of those kind of data aspects if we look at this from the regulation perspective, but we'll come back on this later. So that's from the activity part. So our, let's say, main core activity is really just to understand the risk. You can think about climate change or anything that is involving actually large risk, so natural catastrophes, industrial risk, also life activities. So related to the challenges, so on our side is also tackled in a relatively different way. So the way we see it in terms of data challenges, so of course the quality is definitely key. But it's as if you can look at, as if you have a big reservoir of data and you have a kind of stream filling up the reservoir every time. So basically you have to, this is what you analyze, you have two, let's say, big approaches. One consisting in just like cleaning the reservoir, but it can take a lot of time because it's pretty huge, and you need to make sure that this kind of data is still available at the same time. And then you have AI helping you basically to control the stream. So as if you can filter the stream at the source and making sure that basically you just clean, full with clean data at the beginning. So We have the two approaches actually in progress, but definitely because the size of our company is much smaller in terms of employees, in terms of like size of data, we definitely saw AI as an enabler actually just to clean that up. So challenges, because we had to actually set up the technical foundation to make it happen. Something quite generic, make sure you have the right IT infrastructure, understanding how to use the cloud and so on, which was something we can always improve. And in addition to that, making sure that we have a kind of a good educational program to make sure that people are well educated, because it's a topic which is kind of discovered strangely by many people with the buzz around Gen AI. Yeah.
And when you talked about education, you talked as well, Christophe, about regulation, compliance, data governance. Antoine, if you keep the mic for one more question, you know there is the AI Act going into the French legislative and regulatory corpus now since last summer. It's a huge challenge. It can unveil a lot of potentials to structure, clean, and put roles to some people which currently are not tackling these roles. How do you envision and how do you manage this AI Act change in SCOR?
So first of all, we just see that just as another regulation, I would say, in addition to the existing ones. I'm laughing when I say that, but actually it's also illustrating the fact that we are kind of used to actually follow regulations, so which simplifies somehow the adoption of the coming regulation. We got GDPR previously, and as a global company as well, we are following and monitoring also all of the other regulations at the same time. As the reinsurance industry, most of the time, are international, and so we have also to comply with all the regulation in Asia, in Americas, and also in Europe. So it helped us to tackle it pretty well, to be honest. We just had to adapt slightly our current model risk management framework just to make sure we take that into account. So I would say it's not a risk or threat, it's more an adoption. And again, a lot of education we need to care about to make sure we correctly understand or point out some kind of misunderstanding from the regulation on the AI topics.
Basically, it's business as usual for you guys.
Oh, well, yes and no, of course. It's not business as usual, but I would say that there are some transformation to happen. We need to adapt some stuff. We need to educate, as I said. But I would say that it's not, for us, it's not that a tremendous change because of the nature of our business. We are not directly exposed to direct clients, so which simplify a lot, I think, a lot of stuff. And because we are kind of prudent also in the usage from the beginning. So Gen AI or AI overall are just models for us, and we are used to use models in the insurance industry. So I would say it simplifies from the aspect, but it's not simple.
Okay, no, very clear. But turning towards Société Générale now, do you have a similar approach? I'm not saying business as usual, I understood, but basically, is it a huge challenge for you to integrate this change in the regulation, and basically how do you comply? Do you have process? Do you manage AI in a particular way to be sure that you are maybe ahead of the potential regulation and constraints?
I would say that there are different, well, a set of answers to your question. But maybe first going back to something that was mentioned before, I think one of the unique situations that we have today compared to, say, 5-6 years ago, that you need, say, good data for AI, but you can also use AI to get good data. And that was something that I would say 4 or 5 years ago was not the case. The second thing that I think, and I'm a person that loves to think in frameworks for several reasons, because if you have a framework, you have a change control on top of that, and you can say today we're using our data management framework 1.0, and then maybe in a few years 2.0. But one of the, I think the interesting things is that I think we're at a very, very interesting point at the industry where AI, data, privacy, cost pressure, everything is coming together, and we're going to have to do some serious thinking to evolve our data management frameworks to the next level. So we're investing really a lot of time with the team to say, let's not implement the best of the past. Let's take what we have, challenge it very, very hard, and maybe come up with a version 2.0, 3.0 of our approach. Because I think those companies that will implement, say, best practice only, will find that they will be regulatory compliant, but will not get the benefits of AI. And that's why I say there's a unique situation that things like lineage, you could start thinking that maybe AI could help you accelerate this a little bit. As I said before, I'm a big fan of frameworks. I actually even more favor industry frameworks. I think way too many companies go about this their own way and then realize 6 months later, 12 months later, is like day one, they're very, very happy with the best and greatest in our AI framework. 6 months later, 12 months later, people will have caught up. And you don't profit from the collective intelligence that people put in. So I really like to work together with regulators, with other partners, to basically come up with something that is common for the industry and a common base. It also allows you then to do some benchmarking. Because I think one of the things that we all need to realize, this is a journey. And how do you prove that you're somewhere on the right path on that journey? Because it's not that you go from immature to fully compliant. It's kind of from partially compliant, a little bit more than partially compliant, materially compliant. We went to all the vocabulary in English. And so having that benchmarking, objective benchmarking, helps you also in better understanding where you are. And that's only possible if you use common frameworks.
But could you give us some forecast, some prevision on what will be the potential next challenges and how do you embed them in the relationship you have with the regulator? How do you work hand by hand to both envision the challenges and potentially cope with them? And is the relationship with the regulator an enabler or a potential limit of the fast-moving
one of these people that have a contrarian view on the regulators. So I always say the regulator is my friend.
Okay.
And the reason I'm saying that is, if you look at SocGen's strategy and also other bank strategy, we all want a stable financial system. The governance wants that, people want that, banks want that. So if you accept that everybody in that ecosystem wants to achieve the same, but have a different perspective on how to achieve it, then I personally feel that in that exchange, you ultimately will get to the right answer. And so sometimes it looks to us like they overshoot it, or it's too academic, or it's too fast, or too slow, whatever it is. I think if you take a more long-term view, then ultimately it's all about keeping the financial system stable, as good as we all can with the means that we have. And that's why I personally have no problem with regulators. On the contrary, I think they're an essential part of the ecosystem that we have.
Okay, very clear. Antoine, I will not call you out on this one, because when we were brainstorming, you had some potential slight disagreement. I will not say the regulator is not your friend. I will not say that, but I will let you maybe give us some anecdote and give us your perspective towards the same question as Christophe.
Yeah, I will not use the word friend. I will more use at least someone we can work with for sure. But I would say as well that it really depends on which regulator we are talking about. And back to the education as well, I will just share with you just one funny story. But I was attending to another working group like any of those around AI, and one of the European regulator was there in the room, and he was sharing with us that actually they almost barely understood the AI 1.0 that today they have to face, and another stream just to understand what is Gen AI that they call AI 2.0 with their words. It was kind of funny because it was like a couple of months ago. It's kind of illustrating actually that this kind of fast evolving challenge is actually a reflection about And you mentioned it as well, like this kind of fact that everything is kind of interconnected. So basically, you need to have a lot of knowledge on many aspects to really understand and seize the opportunities and risk. And I would say, back to the friendship world, depending on the regulator, some of them have a pretty good understanding about this aspect, and some of them might kind of, because of lack of education on the topic, perhaps might overshoot a little bit the constraints that impact the industry. So the insurance regulator, as far as we are concerned, is definitely on our side. So pretty appreciable to work with them. We interact a lot. And it's slightly different from the European regulators, if I can quote this example. One main difference, and again I quote the insurance regulator, mentioning that actually insurance regulators are there just to protect the consumer, while European regulators are there just to protect the citizen. And just this slight difference between consumer and citizen, basically there's notion of service. So that is something we all understand in our industry. So we want to provide the best services to our customers, to end users. And so at the end, the slight difference, because of this point of view, it's much more easier just to talk about the regulation when you're on the consumer side, because you know you provide a service with counterparties, let's say, agreement. While when you just protect citizens, you don't have the same, let's say, target or challenges or even like ambitions. Yeah.
Would you say the same, that you feel this difference between customer and citizen at SocGen, or it's something that it's not an issue for you or something you don't need to address?
Again, the way I look at it, there are multiple perspectives on the same problem, and you have to be compliant with, not say the superset, but the best possible intersection of this. So you constantly make a trade-off, and you will have to make trade-off. You cannot have 100% customer protection, and you cannot have 100% safety. And within that, I would say, dynamic world, you consistently have to make trade-off what is possible, what is not possible. And de facto, I also think that's the creative part of our job in a sense. To basically say what can we do in the best interest of the client, and the client, what can we do in the best interest for the bank, what can we do in the best interest for the stability of the financial system, and somewhere in that very complex equation, kind of an answer emerge, and it keeps emerging. The only thing that I sometimes would wish is that we have the courage to review the decisions that we made, say 5 or 6 years or 10 years ago. I remember 2015, 16, and probably I'm guilty for a little bit, but we came up with this thing like critical data elements. If I think about it today, I would say, oh my God, no, but we were a few of us. But did you think, okay, my heart, why didn't we think about, say, critical data assets and data sets and other things? We were so focused on like single elements. And today I feel that this is so embedded in best practice and regulatory rules that I would say, look, let's have the courage to revisit that.
Yeah. Yes. So if I'm summarizing it right, and you tell me, but if a regulation is involving a lot of change, but this regulation may be too rigid or maybe not perfectly suited, then coming back from that can be huge as a legacy. Yeah, okay. Very clear. Thank you very much. We are almost exactly on time, just a little late. Thank you for your insights and your vision, and looking forward for the next step on regulation and how to tackle it. Thank you. Bye.